See it. I'm ready. Ready? What's that? Oh, listen. If you took the over, I promise you not to give you inside trading information, but you're probably going to win. All right, we ready? Paul?
Yes, sir.
All right. First of all, just want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank our athletic director, Mark Coyle, for allowing us to recruit this elite class of 2023. It's been a lot of fun recruiting this group of young men. I want to thank President Gable and the board for all the resources that we have here at the University of Minnesota to go out and get this class. Our coaching staff just works tirelessly, and they just keep putting their head down and just keep going. And I want to thank all of our fans for making Huntington Bank so attractive when people come to watch us play. So just want to thank everybody for helping, because it takes a village, and to put a class together. There's some more thanks. I want to thank Garrett Chernoff, the best GM in the country. I mean, we couldn't be who we are and what we do without Garrett. Marcus Henderson and John Shakel really take care of the personnel department for us. They're the one that kind of casts the wide net. And then by the time it gets to me, I mean, we're at the part where coffee's coming out, not just the grains and the coffee pot. So Kramer Cook, who's our director of recruiting, did a fantastic job. He's got a ton of energy, great personality. Jenna Thompson, who's our director of on-campus recruiting, did a tremendous job with this class. Emily Litwin, Chandler Bunny, Drew Smith, who's our assistant personnel and recruiting, and then Tanner and Nick, who are recruiting assistants. They did a great job. This is a phenomenal class that it's interesting when you put it all together, because it's one of the first classes when you kind of get through the whole portal cycle of seeing how that works. Then you get another chance to do it. There's a combination of a lot of different people in this class. Fills a lot of needs. There's 33 players we're going to talk about. I told you if you took the over, you're going to be just fine. But with that said, this is all about selection and fit. You know me. It's not about recruiting. We show everybody exactly what it's like before they even say yes. This isn't about tricking somebody into thinking something that's really not there. This isn't about, wow, I didn't even know they did that. They come to practice. They watch us practice. They watch us coach. They sit in team meetings. They sit in position meetings. They have a chance to be able to see us on official visits. They come multiple times to camps to watch us coach, be coached by us. I think that's really important. And then they know our standards academically, athletically, socially, serving and giving. They know that, and that's what they're buying. So you're talking about not only just really good football players, but hopefully really good men, future husbands, fathers, and stewards in their community as they continue to go forward. So we're talking about 33 new Gophers. There's 14 different states represented, 13 mid-year enrollees, which is absolutely critical. That used to be a fad. Now that's just something that we do, and that's really a standard. You have 6 4-star recruits, which I could care less, 4-star, 3-star, 9-star, 10-star. We have 7 state champs. I think that's really important to understand. We want people who have won at the highest level. There's a lot of people who went to the state championship, went deep into the playoffs. Huge emphasis on the state of Minnesota and the Midwest. Huge emphasis with this class. Not that has to be one of the prerequisites to recruit a young man here, but we would love for that to happen because of where we're located, the weather we do play in, the weather they walk to class in. I think that's really important too. As you can see, as you look outside today, priority in high school recruiting on the offense and defensive lines. 8 of our 21 high school signees are offensive linemen or defensive linemen. You're going to see also an emphasis at the wide receiver position, which I'm sure you all have questions on, Andy in particular. There's 5 new wide receivers, 8 of the top 12 kids in the state of Minnesota. When we first came here, we said we want to make Minnesota a priority. That doesn't mean you're going to get all the kids in the state of Minnesota. You can make it a priority, but this is something that has taken a long time to get 8 out of the top 12. And that starts with the way we run camps with little kids that are 4, 5, and 6 years old right now. That's the investment we're making. That's a cultural sustainability. That's part of the new 7-year contract. That's part of the investment in Minnesota. And whether people like that or not, that's part of it. And I think that's what we said from day one. We got 5 transfers that are immediately eligible, ready to go, that will come in here and help this football team. And then we've got 3 All-Americans as well, which I'm sure we will talk about. So I'm going to kind of go through them alphabetically. I will not spend a ton of time on each kid. I know we have 33 of them, so I'll make it close if you're betting on the over-under. So here we go. So first of all, Ryan Elgram. He's a long snapper from maybe the greatest high school ever It's Canelan High School in Illinois. Happened to be my high school. So we needed a long snapper in this class. It's funny, you start to feel really old because his mom, Joe, and his dad, Greg, Joe was actually our trainer when I was playing in all sports. And then Greg, his dad, actually played sports at Canelan, and I know him very well. So he earned a spot at camp. You're going to see that being a repetitive theme, camp, camp, camp. Let us get out there and experience you, coach you. And he's one of the best long snappers in the country, and we needed that, especially with Brady Weeks getting a little bit older. But this guy's absolutely phenomenal, and like I said, he's a Canelan Knight, so we're really excited to have him. Next up, Kerry Brown, defensive back from Naples, Florida. Nothing wrong with recruiting Naples. Absolutely love recruiting Naples, especially this time of year. He's enrolling mid-year. He's a guy that can play corner, safety, nickel. You can move him around. I think Justice Harris, but a little bit bigger and a little bit longer, taller, but he's got that same type of bite as that bulldog as Justice Harris. Mom Karen is huge into the holidays. If you go to her front yard, she's got all the inflatables. I mean, every inflatable known to man. And this is the middle of the day in Naples, Florida, where it does not feel like Christmas, from a Midwesterner, right? And I was like, man, those are a lot of inflatables. She's like, Coach Fleck, you want to see all those inflatables? I said, well, you don't say no. So I said, absolutely. She put on every single one of those inflatables. It's noon in Naples, Florida, 85 degrees, and there's the Grinch, there's Santa. She has a trilingual Santa that's singing, Frosty the Snowman in 3 different languages, and it is a winter wonderland with no snow in her front yard. And there's no bigger fan of Kerry Brown than his mom, and we can't wait for her to join our family. So Zaquan Bryant, maybe one of the best athletes in this entire class, defensive back from Savannah, Georgia, Benedictine Military School, back-to-back state champion, which is absolutely critical. When we're talking about winning championships here, as we continue to strive to do that, we've been really close over the last few years, but you continue to bring in state champions that know how to be able to finish and get that done. That's going to be critical for us. But this guy plays running back, wide receiver, corner. He's one of those young players that you feel like, even though he's coming in the summer, he has ability to maybe help us as a freshman because he is so dynamic. Never comes off the field. Dad Anthony is just so proud of him. When I went to his game, I got a chance to go to one of the state playoff games, and I got paraded around. I never knew so many people in Savannah, Georgia, know anything about Minnesota football. Everywhere I went, packed stadium, row the boat, Ski-U-Mah, go Gophers, in that order. It was done right. I was introduced to hundreds of people that all can't wait to be Gophers. The only problem is, they were all bundled up, and it was 58 degrees at night for the high school game, and they looked like it's about below zero. So we're going to have to get everybody down there in Savannah some heated vests and socks, and especially his family. But ran a 10.900 meters. This is the 3-4A player of the year in the state of Georgia, so we're excited to have Zaquan and his family join us. Ethan Carrier, defensive back from Detroit Lakes High School, Adam Thielen's high school. For all of you keeping score, Matt and Kelly, just his parents, just diehard Gopher fans. Had an elite senior season at Detroit Lakes. Family are diehard Gopher fans, like I said. When parents walk in and they have kids that you're recruiting, and all they talk about is their experience with Gopher football, and they're fans of Gopher football. They have season tickets for so many years. You feel really good about where you are before you even open your mouth. So it helps us. Not only that, they have a family puzzle. It sits kind of on their dining room table that is of the storming of the field in 2019 against Penn State. So we felt like we had a really good chance to get Ethan as we move forward. So he can play safety, nickel. He can continue to move around. But you talk about a really aggressive defensive back, Ethan's the guy. Next up, one of our transfer portal gets, Chris Collins. He's a University of North Carolina transfer, originally from Richmond, Virginia. He will be enrolling here mid-year. Mom is actually a basketball coach. She had already read the Row the Boat book. She had it in hand when she got here. She goes, I know all about this place. And she showed me, and I was like, hey, well, you're a step ahead. So let's build on it, and let's continue to expand on that as well. We need to help our pass rush. We need to get more pressure on the quarterback, and I think Chris is going to definitely help us do that. He's got great support. He'll be here very shortly, and we'll get working on rushing the quarterback very quickly, but we're glad that Chris has joined our family. Next up, another transfer that we brought in. We need to be able to help our wide receiver room and be able to kind of stir that up a little bit. And we've got to be able to be way more productive. at the wide receiver position. We need to make it way more competitive in that room. And I feel like taking 5 receivers in this class so far, I think we've done that. And one of those guys is Corey Crooms Jr. He's a wide receiver, originally from Country Club Hills, Illinois, which is where Darrell Hill was a teammate of mine at Northern Illinois University, who played in the NFL, especially with the Chiefs. But he's by way of Western Michigan University, and we know that place really well. We have people on our staff that know that place really well and know him really well. And when he became available, we jumped all over it because he's a young man that's got incredible change of direction, short area burst. He plays bigger than he is. He'll be really good in our RPO game, really good in our West Coast type route tree. He's going to be able to play every position. He's played a ton of football, produced at a high level, very, very productive college player. And we expect him to be very productive here. He's got 1 year of eligibility left, but he's played a ton of football. And we expect him to play a ton of football for us as well. 50-50 balls aren't really 50-50. With Corey, they're more like 90-10. And that's what we need to continue to bring in here to help some of the guys that have really produced at a high level in that room as well. Catches the ball in traffic. You talk about a very quiet, humble young man. Corey is that. So he'll be here mid-year as well, and we'll hit the ground running with him. Next up, one of the surprise guys of the class that signed today. Maybe a surprise you, not necessarily maybe a surprise to us, but Phillip Daniels, offensive lineman from Princeton High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. This guy kind of reminds us a little bit of kind of the Chukwuma Okorafor. When you kind of think of him, he's a little bit underdeveloped, but he has got an incredibly high ceiling. He's incredibly athletic. And you talk about a worker. I mean, the kid has 3 jobs. I love that, right? You're talking about in a world that a lot of people want to be given things. This guy has 3 jobs. He works at White Castle. He works at Honey Baked Ham. And then he's a referee for little Pop Warner. Can you imagine this guy, 6'5", 290 pounds, refereeing your game? Pretty exciting. But this guy's, got Ariante-type athleticism, the Chukwuma Okorafor athleticism. The sky's the limit for this young man, and it was a great surprise today. Well, maybe for you, but it was just a great get for us to be able to get this young man, one of the top 40 tackles in the country, to join us. So excited about bringing him in. His mom's an elementary school teacher, which is right up my alley. And we had a lot of good conversation in her home just about elementary school and what that means and being a teacher. So thanks to her for what she does. Next up, Alex Elliott, a linebacker from Hutchinson High School here in Minnesota. Here's a young man who came to camp multiple times. Just because somebody comes to camp doesn't mean that we're going to sit there and offer you the first time. It might take 2 camps, 3 camps, 4 camps, 5 camps. It might take multiple years. We're going to be very transparent and honest about what you have to keep working on. And for Alex, from even last year, we liked him. And then this year's camp, we liked him, but we still couldn't offer him. But to watch how he was able to develop and change his body, even the course of a few months over the summer, that's when we knew that he would make all those investments into his body because he has the speed, he has the athleticism. It was, will he get big enough? And over the course of a few months and over a year, he invested in his body, and his body changed completely. He's a state champ. He's a state runner-up. He's able to bring that type of winning atmosphere here to Minnesota, and we love it. So you talk about somebody who earned his opportunity. Alex Elliott earned his opportunity. All right, next up, Nuke Hayes. You're probably saying, wow, Nuke Hayes, nice. It's a nickname, Nuke. His grandma called him Nuke as a kid, and it just stuck. So, we're going to call him Nuke Hayes, really just Nuke, really just by one name. It's kind of like Prince. But last 2 years, he's averaged 20 yards a catch. We're talking about explosive playmakers. We might possibly need some freshmen to help us this year. But we brought in some freshmen that I think can help us. They have the athleticism. Now, they've got to get here and prove it, and they've got to earn it. But they have the athleticism and the big play ability to help us and come in here and do that. And this young man never stops smiling, never stops working. His mom's a nurse, Andrika Hayes, and got a chance to stop over at her work and say hi. And she's a nurse and in the service industry that way, taking care of people. And Nuke is a wonderful, wonderful people person. I think you're really going to be attracted to his personality. And most wide receivers have that type of personality, and I think you're all going to like him. So really excited to have him from Pine Forest High School in Pensacola, Florida. Next up, another one of our transfer portal young men, Jack Henderson, defensive back from Southeast Louisiana. He's originally from Mandeville, Louisiana. He's bringing that Cajun flair here to Minnesota. He's about 6'2.5", 210 pounds. He's going to play a little bit of that nickel position, and we need that. And, you know, with one of our players entering the portal, leaving, we just replace that position. He provides a lot of length. He can cover you. He can hit. He can run. You know, he's physical. He's long, like I said before. He's enrolling mid-year, so we'll have him mid-year. But, you know, we talked about a little bit of, yes, if there's any Cajun food here in Minneapolis. Well, the only one I know of is Mr. Paul's Supper Club over there in Edina. So I'm sure there's a lot more, but if you are, reach out to him because he's coming from Louisiana. He's used to crawfish broils. So if you can reach out to him and let us know all the best restaurants in here for Cajun food, I'm sure he'll be really interested in that. But we're really excited to have him back where he's from. They call him the Assassin. And when you watch his film, I mean, he gets after it. So really excited to have Jack part of our program. Next up, one of the best offensive linemen from the state of Minnesota, Greg Johnson, Prior Lake High School. He's enrolling mid-year. You talk about a guy who looks like he's ready to play, even as a freshman. Very difficult to do in the Big Ten, but you look at his body, you look at his senior tape, you know him as a person with his mind, his emotional intelligence. He's a guy that could help you early on the offensive line. Now, we'll see when he gets here, but his camp performance was through the roof. He's dreamed of being a Gopher. That's a huge emphasis to us. Get as many young people here that dream of being a Gopher, just like some of the rivals that we have inside our Big Ten league that dream of being at those schools. We need to have way more of those, and we're getting way more of those. He's ranked the number 2 player in the state of Minnesota. He's a mauler. He's athletic, ranked as a top 20 interior offensive lineman in the nation, and he committed right away. His parents knew that he wanted to be here. He wanted to be here, and once we offered him, he was in the boat. And that's what you want to see from in-state kids, especially when they spend a lot of time around there, that they already feel like they're part of the team. So he's a special young man, special player. He'll be here very shortly, hopefully helping this football team out. Next up, one of the newer additions to our program within the last 48 to 72 hours, Matt Kingsbury, linebacker / rush end from St. Rita High School in Chicago, Illinois. The Catholic League has been very good to us. It's real tough, hard-nosed football, smart players, emotional intelligence, mental intelligence. His dad was a Purdue captain. And when you talk about the Mike Allstotts of the world, that was part of his captain. The assistant GM for the Vikings was part of that group of captains there. Dad still looks and feels like he plays football. He's got the intensity. I didn't know who was more excited when he committed, his dad or him. But he is a true throwback. Think Mariano Sori-Marin. But he is a true throwback. Chicago Catholic League Player of the Year. I mean, that's right up Brian Callahan's alley, my alley, and Coach Rossi's alley. And we're really excited to have him part of the program. Next up, one of the best playmakers in the state of Georgia, Kendrick Lanier II from Decatur High School in Georgia. He's one of the selections to the All-American Bowl coming up here, so you get a chance to watch him here soon. He's a 22.5-foot long jumper. He's an incredible basketball player. He's great. He can great 40 times. Again, Georgia player, basketball player, long in the long jump, great kid. He kind of reminds us of somebody that played here a few years ago when you watch him as a student athlete. We recruited him for a long time. I know he was committed to an SEC school, but it wasn't like we flipped him late. We've been recruiting him for a long time, and it's been great to get to know him and his family. But he's a tremendous, tremendous athlete, player of the year in basketball. When Coach Simon and I got a chance to go down there and visit him and his family, Coach Simon, he's got a lot going on. He's like, hey, I'm like, where are we going to dinner tonight? He's like, well, we're going to some Mexican restaurant, some taco place. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I got to prepare myself. I go to a lot of places to eat, homes, restaurants. I probably eat 3-4 times a day. I got to pace myself. So I'm thinking I'm going in and I'm going to have some tacos and going to a Mexican restaurant. I'm all fired up. And I'm not saying this place was bad because it was elite. But Coach Simon's got to know that Taco Mac is not a Mexican restaurant. It's more like a bar and grill down in the South. And so I was not disappointed, but I was a little surprised because I already had bar food earlier in the day. So I was really getting ready for the Mexican food. And that's where we went, spent a lot of time. And it was, I think there was one of the championship games was on, so we got a chance to watch that as well. But the 5A Offensive Player of the Year, selected to the All-America Bowl, like I said. You talk about a young man who has a vision of coming in here and playing. This young man does. He's enrolling early, so he'll be here and hopefully makes an immediate impact on our football team. But really excited to have Kenrick a part of us. Next up, Caleb McGrath, All-American punter, one of our All-Americans. He's 6'2", 180 pounds, out of Apple Valley High School, by the way of Eastview High School. Parents are Dan and Susan. Family's huge Gopher fans, but not only that, they're former Gophers and always Gophers. You know, Dad played baseball here at Minnesota from 1997 through 2000. His dad is from Australia, and Caleb actually lived there for a few years as well, so kind of joins Mark Crawford in that Australian specialist room. His mother played volleyball from 1996 to 1999. His aunts played basketball and volleyball here too. So when you talk about that Gopher family joining our Gopher family, that's absolutely critical. Again, he'll be playing in the All-American game here coming up, but he'll be in the Under Armour All-American game instead of the other All-American game, which used to be called the Army All-American game. Now it's just the All-American game. So look forward to having Caleb here as we continue to upgrade our specialists moving into the future. Next up, one of our other All-Americans who'll be playing in the game as well, TJ McWilliams, one of our recent commits from North Central High School in Indianapolis, Indiana. Probably has the most fashionable parents maybe I've been a part of, and they'll appreciate that with all their drip and fashion at the same time. It's pretty impressive the way they coordinate their outfits. Heather and I take a lot of pride in doing that, but they do it to a completely different level. So I could appreciate that. But when you talk about a really, really smart player, I mean, he is not only book smart, football smart, is tremendous inside a phone booth, short area quickness, short area burst, got great hands, can take a screen and take it 80. So he is an incredibly explosive player. He was originally committed to another Big Ten school. He and Kenrick are the first two Gophers that have been selected into the All-American game at the wide receiver position. So we're really excited about that. But really good basketball player as well. I got a chance to talk to him the night before signing day, and he's working out with his trainer and had to let me go. So he's like, Coach, I'm in the middle of a workout. Can I let you go? I'm like, listen, man, I'm just making sure you sign in tomorrow. I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, all right, okay. Then we hung up. So we get a little paranoid the night before signing day, in case you were wondering. But really excited to have TJ be a part of our program. And again, that wide receiver room is incredibly important, but he'll be starting in the summer. So and we look forward to having him here. Next up, we talked about the pass rush. This next guy kind of reminds me body frame of a young Carter Coughlin. I don't say older because he'll develop into that, we feel. But Carter Menz, defensive lineman from Cheyenne High School in Fargo, North Dakota. Dad Kelly, Mom Brenda. But that Carter Coughlin type body. I mean, this guy's incredibly twitchy. He's long, can rush the passer. He's the top-ranked player in the state of North Dakota. And over the past 2 years, had 105 tackles with over 22 sacks. So he's used to doing that, has a great feel for it, a great knack for it, from power to speed, speed to power. Really good with his arms and hands at the level of the quarterback, which I think's an art. I think you can teach it, but it's also an art. Having the ability to have that knack to be able to get your arm and hand in the right place to be able to sack fumble it as you go by the quarterback, as you spin back into the quarterback and sack fumble. So excited to have Carter. Next up, De'Eric Mister, offensive lineman, 6'6", 310 pounds from Westside High School in Gary, Indiana. You talk about a high ceiling prospect. This guy's an overachiever. He's only been playing football 2 years. Again, if I go back to who we've recruited that way, it's a little bit like Shakuma Okorafor when we were back at Western Michigan University, of the low amount of football he's actually played. But the sky's the limit for this young man. I mean, they won their conference championship. He was named first team 4A All-State. He's only been playing football 2 years, but he is a massive young man. He's got a great personality, and he'll be joining us here soon, but he'll be joining us in the summer. Next up, Garrison Monroe, defensive back from Shakopee High School here in Minnesota. He'll be enrolling early, one of our mid-years. You talk about another camp young man. He came to camp multiple times, and we put him at corner. We put him at wideout. We put him at safety. He's an athlete. I think he's going to a little bit more project into that safety-type level. But he was ranked top 5 player in the state of Minnesota because he did everything. Comes from a football family. Brother plays in college as well. But we really feel good about keeping the in-state talent home. It was critical in his ability to come to camp multiple times. We wanted to continue to see more and more. And the more you get around Garrison, goes by Gary, the more you get around Garrison, the more you're going to like him. And he's one of those guys that it just grows on you the more you're around him, because he's such a talented football player, and excited to have him. So next up, Martin Owusu, defensive line, Prior Lake High School here in Minnesota. He's enrolling early, had over 30 Division I offers, ranked at the top 5 player in the state of Minnesota. Wisconsin even kind of came in, tried to flip him early. Showed me all the text messages of them doing everything they can to negative recruit to flip us, and it didn't work. So we axed it. So true connector to the class. That's what's great. You get to see all the text messages. That's the best part of negative recruiting. You get to see all these grown men negative recruit and text messages. Beautiful. And appreciate everybody sharing those with us, because we don't negative recruit. And it's really interesting to see that. Another example of a kid who really wanted to play for Minnesota. And again, I can say that over and over. I sound like a broken record already, but that's true. And in 6 years, that's your whole goal. You either get to that point, or you're probably not the next head coach here. You're probably on your way somewhere else. You've got to make the state of Minnesota grow and work. And with this addition of these guys from the state of Minnesota, I feel really good about the future of where we are in this state. But by far, this was the best talent, in my opinion, in the last 6 years, respectively speaking, across the board. And Martin was a huge connector to this class. The minute he recruited, our class took off. He's got a great personality. He's infectious. He's got great twitch, a high motor. He's long, and he's going to help us on the D-line. So we're excited about that. Next up, Sam Peters, another in-state Minnesota kid from Maple Grove High School, tight end, 6'5", 220 pounds. Dad, Steve, Mom, Sherry. Another example of someone who earned a scholarship at camp. Again, I got to see it to believe it. I love camp. I got to be able to trust my own eyes. And, as I get my sight back into focus here, I got to be able to see it closer and closer. But it's great to be able to have another a state champion be a part of this football program. Tight end positions become more and more important. Who would have thought that? Remember, we talked a few years ago, and everyone was like, hey, where's your tight ends? Where's your tight ends? So they're coming. They're coming, right? I'm not coming, but they're coming, right? And here they are. And when you look at what we've brought in, you look at Brevin Spanford and the success he's had, you look at the Nick Callerups, you look at the Jamison Gears, you're starting to see not only what's here now, but you're seeing the future of Gopher football almost at every position. And now you're starting to see that with the tight end position as well. Our tight end position was the second leading receiver on this team this year, right? When you look at that, it was close between Daniel and Brevin all the way to the finish. And we talked about, when will we get to those days where the tight ends are way more involved? Well, we're getting a lot closer to that. And this year was a huge example of that. But Sam's a wonderful kid. He's a wonderful athlete. He's tough as nails, and he'll be here in the summer. Next up, Jackson Powers, another state champion from Maple Grove High School. Stephen Carey Powers, his parents, extremely competitive. We loved his drive at camp. Here's a guy who's went to multiple camps that we were at, finding out where we're going to be, traveling all over the country to find out where we're going to be in front of us over and over and over, not just at our own camps, but other people's camps. And I thought that was absolutely critical in us being able to offer him. So he's on Sam Peters' team. They won a state championship, and they'll bring that over here. Next up, Theo Randall. I think one of the biggest sleepers of the class. He's one of the most talented prospects in this class, and we'll talk a little bit why. 6'1", 280 pounds. Shadow Creek High School down there in Houston, Texas. Brick does a really good job of recruiting down in the Houston area. Mom, Dr. Tomisha Reed, is a wonderful, wonderful person. And you talk about education being at the forefront of what she wants with her son. Minnesota fit the bill there. He's got a high motor. He's incredibly twitched. You got to think like Trill Carter, but almost longer, right? And he's got that twitch, that explosion, the strength, the power. He's got an elite support system around him. You go to his home visit, you got a stepdad, you got his mom. You got all his aunties there. I even talked to some of his aunties yesterday because they're so involved in his life, and they're so supportive. Every time, the time we were there, every 2 minutes the doorbell was ringing and somebody else was coming through the door. There was like 50 people in that house by the time, and they were all uncles and aunties, and he has a huge support system. So we have a lot of people to call. I told him, I said, listen, I got a lot of people to call if he doesn't do the right thing. I said, Coach, you call us anytime. But he's full of energy. He's always positive. He's always got a smile on his face. And but he did a rare kind of in-state official visit, which we don't have a ton of in-state visits, or in-season visits, I should say. And he came for the Northwestern game and committed after that, and we're excited to have him. But this is a young man that could possibly help us up front early because he has the size, he has the length, he's got the strength. You could possibly even see him early in a rotation. Next up, maybe one of the best athletes across the board in every sport and every position on the football field, Xander Rockow, linebacker / everything else from Regis High School in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. He's a state champ in football and baseball. I mean, he came to us with a black eye. At one of these times he came to visit, and we're thinking that's got to be a football injury. Nope, baseball, right to the eye. Kept playing. It's just kind of tough athlete he is. Plays almost every position on the football field, from running back to linebacker to defensive tackle, right? He's all over the place. And it's going to be interesting to see where this young man ends up playing. We're going to kind of put him in that linebacker room to start and then kind of just see where we go from there. But he had a state championship record with 251 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns this past year. Also won a state championship, like I said, in baseball. So we'll see where he ends up playing, but heck of an athlete entering this class. Next up, one of our transfers that, with Mariano Sori-Marion leaving, we feel really good about the young linebackers that we have. And I think that's a credit to the recruiting part that we're doing. We were able to redshirt all the young players, so you could see people with Cody Lindenberg next year with some redshirt freshmen playing next to him. But Ryan Seelig helps us immediately. He gives us that bridge between really the young players who are ready to play and then obviously the Codys that are ready to play right away as well. About 6'3", 235 pounds, a Western Michigan transfer. He's originally from Lindenhurst, Illinois. Dave and Sandy are his parents. He'll be here mid-year. He's got a dog. One of his number one questions was, can I bring my dog? I'm like, yeah, what kind of dog you have? Sure, you can bring your dog. A lot of our players have dogs, and feel like they're all ready to have kids, which is amazing. Dogs are just like having kids, too, just so everybody knows out there. But I'm like, well, what kind of, you got? Little dog? He's like, no, I got a black lab. I'm like, okay, 50 pounds, 60 pounds, normal black lab, It's a 96-pound black lab, okay? And the tail is like 5 feet long, and it knocks over everything in its way. And that's kind of like Ryan, just bulldozes over, knocks people down, great tackler. His dog, Heiser, is the exact same thing. And so we expect big things from him. I've never really been on an official home visit early in the morning. But we had that day was full of a lot of visits. Probably had 4 or 5 visits that day. So we got there early in the morning, and his mom made the best egg casserole. And it was like nothing. It was just, that's what she does every single morning. And sausages, it was fresh. So we ate a lot that morning. We had a very nutritious breakfast, and we appreciate that. But Ryan and his dog Heiser will be here very shortly because they join us coming up here at the semester. So kind of filled that linebacker need with experience right there to kind of join our young linebackers as well as we get into next year. All right, next up, quarterback from Stillwater High School, Max Schickenjansky. They just call him Schick for a reason. That's what I'll be calling him. Was committed as a basketball Division I player. Kid's a heck of an athlete. He averaged 28.3 points per game in basketball over there at Stillwater High School. His dad, Jim, played basketball here from 1986 to 1990. This was a finalist for Mr. Football here in the state of Minnesota. Pioneer Press East Metro Player of the Year. Good selection. And we're excited to have him. He's an ultimate competitor, and he'll be here in the summer as well. Next up, another wide receiver transfer that we feel can help us right away. We have 2 years left, a little bit different than Corey with the 1 year left, but 2 years left to help us. It's interesting when you take transfers, you don't have a ton of time to get to know them like you do high school players. I've known Tanner Morgan for 8 years, 8 years, 2 before he even came here. So you get to know high school players a little bit more. So you got to trust the people that you really know. And at Charlotte, I obviously know Will Healy really well, who used to be the head coach there. Marcus West came from Charlotte to come to us, or went there to be the defense coordinator, I should say. And we know a ton of other people. Jenna Thompson, who's part of our recruiting department, she came from Charlotte. So you've got to trust your people. And everybody who talked about Elijah said he is not only one of the best players I've ever been around. He was the freshman player of the year in Conference USA 2 years ago. But he's one of the best people you will ever meet. So I get a chance, get around him. I see him on FaceTime an awful lot. That doesn't count for meeting. Meeting's all about in person. Sits in my office, says, Coach, I got one question for you. Yeah, what do you want? Yeah, what do you got? He's like, 'cause who knows what's coming out of somebody's mouth in 2022/2023. He goes, what do you know about me? And I was like, it's a great question. I said, what do you know about me? The answer to both questions was kind of like, not much. Let's get started. But who asked that? What do you know about me? And I told him what I knew and what I was told, but I didn't really know it because I haven't experienced it yet. But we then had an hour conversation. And it was a conversation. It wasn't recruiting. It wasn't selecting. It wasn't picking. It was just a conversation about both of our lives. One of the more in-depth conversations I've ever had with a young man, especially when you only have one time where you get a chance to meet him in person and really get to know him as fast as you can. But what a mature question to ask a head football coach in the Big Ten. What do you know about me? And I give him a lot of credit for doing that. And we're excited to have him. He's a playmaker, and he can play every single position, and he is a worker. So, again, elevating that room, creating more of that competition. And we feel like we've definitely done that. And he'll be here mid-year. And I know our quarterback situation is our quarterbacks are really excited about what we're bringing in and then also what we have right now in that room as well. All right, next up. I think one of the prize recruits of the class because of how heavily recruited he was. And NIL was involved from other schools constantly. That was one of the biggest hurdles. It just became more money and more money and more money. The great thing about us was it was never about money. Didn't have anything to do with money. In fact, it had nothing to do with money because there wasn't any sitting there. He picked us for all the right reasons. He picked it for the relationships. He picked it for the opportunity. We're talking about Darius Taylor out of Walled Lake Western High School. And you talk about a support staff. Lives with his auntie, Shanika, who is his biggest fan, next to his cousin Mariah, who's a heck of a basketball player, and then his grandma, Carlita. If you get a chance to meet her, there's nobody who loves their grandchildren more than her. And she's a huge fan of the Gophers. She's already told me what play she wants ran next year, what play she wants ran in the bowl game, what we do well, what we don't do well. He's a mid-year, but everybody wanted this young man because he is so dynamic. He's not only a dynamic person, he's a dynamic player. Catching the ball, running the ball, just an absolute stud. Coach Shiroch was huge in this process. I think he stands for all the right things. Stands for all the right things in college football, stands for all the right things with NIL and how it was designed and implemented. When student athletes have that name, image, and likeness when they're at their institutions, I think that's absolutely critical. And then Coach Donovan Dooley was critical in his recruiting process. Again, has all, I think, the right perspective of helping young people pick the schools about the right fit. I just got a statistic today. I think there's like 4,700 people in the portal right now. 4,700 student athletes. That's a lot. And it's up 19% than it was even last year, and that was a lot. So when you're talking about people making decisions for all the wrong reasons, I think that has happened more than ever. It's very refreshing to see people that pick it for all the right reasons. And not just because he picked Minnesota. I'm not saying we're the only right reason. I'm saying because it fit. And it was the perfect fit for him. It was exactly what he was looking for academically, athletically, socially, spiritually, with serving and giving. He ran the ball 268 times this year for 2,450 yards. I think he can handle some, 30 to 39 carries, from that. 36 touchdowns this season. Every week it looked like we were watching a video game. And, he set a single game record with 438 yards rushing in one game this season. Scored 6 touchdowns 3 times. So maybe Mo's records might be broken by the guy that he helped recruit to bring in here. And I know Mo would love that. He's also a wrestler. He competes in track. He's a first-team Detroit Free Press All-Stater. First All-State and everything, but All-State as a person. And we're so excited about Darius coming here. He's got an incredible story, which I can't wait for all of you to be able to find out about, write about, because he's what's right about college athletics. And it's a lot of fun to be able to recruit young men like this, especially with all the offers and the temptations that he has. Not to say those are bad. A lot of people decide on those things, but he didn't, and he'll be starting here early as well. So we'll be getting him caught up very quickly. Next up, Reese Tripp, one of the most gigantic high school players you'll ever meet. Now, gigantic is a little bit of relatively speaking. You're used to 6'9", 400 pounds is gigantic with Daniel Fa'alele. He's not that gigantic, but he's a massive man, 6'7", 330 pounds. Another Minnesota young man, Case in Manderville High School. He'll be enrolling mid-year. Came up for a junior day in January, and we offered him. He asked to meet at the end of the day after the junior day, said, I'm all in. I've dreamed of playing here, dreamed of being a Gopher. I love hearing that. More than that, I love hearing that in state. I heard that more this year than I've ever heard it. I dream of being a Gopher. And you got to think back. These are 16-year-old young men, 17-year-old young men. 6 years ago is about when they were 10 or 11, right? And they also got to witness when they're 13 or 14, the 2019 season. Some of them were actually at the game and stormed the field as 13 and 14-year-olds. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool when you're having those types of experiences and hearing those stories back from parents. Salt of the Earth, blue-collar family, Dean and Samantha, they are awesome. I mean, you talk about even throwback parents. They get done committing. I said, where are you guys going? Coach, I don't know. We're going to grab some beers on the way home, though. That's for sure. So love it. And Mr. Football finalist here in the state of Minnesota. He's also a first baseman. So if I'm a third baseman, shortstop, or second baseman, I'm throwing to first, you can miss by a lot by throwing to this guy. And just an unbelievable personality, always a smile on his face. And Coach Callahan's a very happy man today. Enrolling mid-year, so he'll be here soon. Next up, a teammate of Darius Taylor, Drew Vioto, a quarterback, 6'4", 220 pounds, out of Walled Lake Western High School in Michigan. Ross and Andrea, two of the most selfless parents I've ever met. You know, they moved from Canada into the United States to give both of their kids an opportunity in sports, more than they had in Canada. And, you know, Andrea made a comment to me at their house. She's like, we actually live here, and we've moved multiple times for our kids. They just don't understand it. They won't understand it until they're older. I said, they'll get it, because I'll tell them that all the time. The sacrifices those two made. We're talking about not just moving down the street, moving out of district, going to a different school down the street. They move countries to give their children a better opportunity to be able to play the sports that they love. So he's originally from Ontario, Canada. I did my best version of O Canada this morning on signing day. It was not bad. I was told by him it wasn't bad. He actually thought it was pretty good. But like I said, supportive parents. Coach Shiraka saw him in the spring in a torrential downpour. And the one thing we loved about this young man, it's a torrential downpour. This isn't just raining. And Coach Shiraka's like, hey, we can head inside if you want. He goes, No, we play in the Midwest. Let's keep going. So the kid wanted to stay outside. He didn't have an excuse to go inside because the ball wasn't coming out of his hand right. He stayed outside the entire workout and threw for Coach Shiraka in the pouring rain. Coach Shiraka came back and said, that's our guy. And he's got a huge arm, live arm. He used to drive 4.5 hours twice a month to train with Coach Dooley all the way from Canada to Michigan in 7th grade. Talk about commitment. That's not just him. Remember, 7th grade. So he's not driving yet. That's his family doing that. So, like I said, one of the most committed families that we have in this class. He'll be enrolling early as well, joining our quarterback room. Next up, tight end Pierce Walsh, another Chicagoland area young man from Bennett Academy, Frank and Ann Celine. His mother runs that household. I love Frank, but mom's a judge. She's a circuit court judge, and you can tell. Coach Callahan would actually say that was the best food visit because Coach Callahan wasn't on the original sheet to go to that home. Coach Harbaugh was. And then once they were talking as a staff, and Coach Harbaugh told the staff the menu, somehow Coach Callahan came along. And Coach Callahan finds his way into situations like that, being the O-line coach, and he voted it number one. Tough, blue-collar, Chicagoland kid. Again, tight end, named to the All-State team there in Illinois, and really excited to have Pierce. Next up, another in-state lineman, offensive lineman, Jerome Williams from Osseo High School here in Minnesota. 4-star by 24/7 Sports. Incredibly long arms, athletic, can bend. Hasn't played a ton of football. He's pretty raw, but when this guy figures it out, he's going to be very good. When you see him, that's what the inside interior players in the Big Ten and the NFL look like. Really long arms, big lower half, can bend. He's got great support from Coach Stockhouse there at Osseo High School, and consistently around. It seems like he's been a part of our team already for years, but spends a ton of time around here. Unofficial and obviously with his official, but plays basketball as well. We're talking last night. He's out there playing basketball and really good athlete. So excited to have Jerome. Next up, Marquise Williams, running back, out of Bishop McDevitt High School, a really good high school out of Pennsylvania. He's from the Harrisburg area, which is where Coach Schirach is from. So there's always a connection there. Another state champ. Got a chance to go down to a state championship football game, which was wonderful to see. He's got really good players all around him, and he's one of them. Ranked as a top 30 running back in the country. Invited to the 2023 Polynesian Bowl. He's got over 4,400 yards in his career, 71 touchdowns, and 43 catches for close to 700 yards with 10 receiving touchdowns as well. This guy is a true scat back. He can make you miss. He can go from speed to power, power to speed. Got a great low center of gravity. You'll see both our backs are not these 6'4" backs. They're kind of built. They got long limbs, but they're a little bit shorter. They can get under pads. They run behind their pads really well. Plus, they can also be really good receivers. So that's going to help us in the pass game as well. All right, next up, last but not least, Drew Wilson, linebacker from Homestead High School in Wisconsin. Camped very well for us in the summer, and we felt like we really had to go on him. Was able to come to many games over the fall, and he was named first team All-State in the state of Wisconsin. So can't wait for Drew to join us here in the summer. So there's our entire class. What was that?
45-40.
Okay, what was the line?
42.5.
Oh, I told you. Listen, inside trading information, right? Told you to take the over. Probably the only thing I can tell you to take the over in, right? But I'm sure somebody exchanged some money in this room. So with that said, that's my opening statement. I guess we'll open up for questions. Paul, is that all right?
We have time for about 2 or 3 questions. PG, obvious commitment to receiver, and you're not going to open the playbook to us, but will the offense feel different, look different next fall?
Well, I think that so many people get like kind of enamored with like what you do now. You know, I think a sign of a really good coaching staff and culture and program is, can you adapt to the best players on your team? Can you do what they do well? We've had the same system for 10 years, right? And when you look at it, we've also had 2 first-team All-Big Ten wide receivers for the first time in the history of the Big Ten in 2019. So we have the ability to have that within the offense. And then we have the ability to have the Mohammed offense, right? Where you see that, where we're truly run heavy, and it's not like we didn't pass the ball a lot. We just didn't execute well enough in the pass game for me to want to do it more and more and more. And I think as a head coach, you got to be able to make those types of decisions and then adapt based on what your players are showing you that they're capable of and not capable of, and performing and not performing. And you got to listen to that. You know, this isn't about taking a square peg and just jamming it in the round hole until it works. That's what I love about our system. We can have it as one of the best passing games in the country and one of the most efficient passing games in the country, mixed with still a really good running game. Or we can just line up, put our hand in the ground, and just run the ball for 400 yards. You have the ability to do all that within our system. So to answer your question, because it's a good one, you can see there's an O-line emphasis, there's a D-line emphasis where I think Big Ten games are won and lost up front. They're always going to be, right? We have to keep developing that. And then for us, when I look and evaluate over the wide receiver position, we have to get better. We have to create more competition. And I've felt really good 8, 9 of the 10 years. This helps us be able to do that. It adds to some great playmakers we already have inside that room. I mean, some great playmakers. You know, Chris Ottman-Bell coming back, Daniel Jackson's of the world, and Mekhi, you saw him come on strong at the end of last year. Now we add to that. So is this going to be just the run and shoot streak read package? I'm not sure if that even makes sense to you. But is it the run and shoot offense? No. Is it the streak read package? No. Is this, air raid? No. But we can be whatever our players show us that we can be. And I would love for that to look 50-50. And now you look at our quarterback position and what we're becoming with him. Not only that, with the tailbacks coming in, the tailbacks staying, the tight ends, the O-line. It's going to be a lot of fun. Coach Rock was smiling this morning. So that's a good thing. He doesn't smile very often. If 2 coordinators don't smile a lot, that's okay. I do enough smiling for all of us.
Comes to Darius Taylor and it gets to November and other Big Ten schools are coming in and you have a running back coach that takes a head coaching job. What's the emphasis in recruiting with a guy who's clearly coveted?
Yeah, that happened too. I think any type of change, head coaches are very paranoid people as it is, right? And you get to close to signing day and then you become extra paranoid. Then one of the best running back coaches in the country, right, take a head job at Kent State. And Kenny has been unbelievable. He's done everything so professionally. He's going to be with us through the bowl game. He's worked out great opportunity with me to be able to go back and forth and work in dual roles, which I had to do when I was in Tampa. So I have some experience in that. But then you have two really good running backs that are committed. And we talk about committing to all of us, Minnesota included, the state, our fans, our culture, our team, our players, our staff, each other. And both guys it didn't waver. And, I'm really proud of Kenny. I'm happy for him. Nobody more deserving. He's ready for his opportunity. But yes, to say I wasn't even more paranoid, we kind of rearranged when we went there. We changed the time of when we went there just to make sure you do everything to feel good about where you're at. I would be lying to you if I didn't say it didn't, at the beginning, upset the apple cart, because any type of change that late, I mean, I just told you about text messages from other people recruiting. You don't think the minute Kenny got a job that every one of our rivals who want them jumped in on him? But that's such a great thing for our program when position coaches are getting head jobs. Out of that running back position, I've had 3 of them in my head coaching career. 2 of them are head coaches right now, and 1's going to be. So I've already said that. No disrespect to Coach Burns, but my job is to do everything and they even upgrade it, right? And it should be an incredibly attractive job to a lot of people that the 2 out of 3 before you are head coaches and the other one probably will be soon. I would say that's a pretty attractive job, Get to coach guys like Mohamed Ibrahim and these young players and the Trey Potts and the Bryce Williams and the Zach Evans. It's pretty exciting.
A lot of high upside talent along the offensive line. How excited are you about the future of that group?
I always get a Cali pulse on that. And because Cali, Cali's been with me from day one. He was one of the first guys I hired, and I trust him wholeheartedly. If Coach Callahan says no on a guy, then I don't ever fight him on it, unless it becomes down to like it's based on a character and we disagree on that. But it comes down to true skill and talent. There's nobody better at evaluating offensive linemen, in my opinion, than Coach Brian Callahan. Doesn't mean we're perfect, but I'm a better head coach because of Brian Callahan. And when you look at the O-line class we brought in, to me, on paper, and what I've seen, it's one of the strongest ones we've had. Now, a lot of things can change as you go forward, but this is one of the strongest O-line classes we brought in here. And I've seen them live, and they're going to be fun to develop. And then they're going to be fun to add to the Tony Nelsons, the Ashton Beers that you see from last year. They're having phenomenal freshman years. They're just on the scout team. They're getting their butt kicked every day. But they're also, now we're starting to get into bowl prep, they're starting to kick a little butt as well, which is nice to see. So I'm excited about them, for sure, as you can tell.
Among your transfers, do you feel you have a Jack Gibbons type, like a plug-and-play guy like that?
Yeah, I think it's awfully hard to always compare it to names. But the only time I ever give you, like, names is to compare it in your head of, like, what type of player it is. Now, is this person going to be like Jack Gibbons? Ryan Seelig? I don't know. But I do know this. We got 3 or 4 really young linebackers that are all freshmen that are incredibly talented. That, again, Joe Rice says, those guys are going to be dudes. I'm sitting there saying, those guys are going to be dudes. And you add that to a young Cody Lindenberg. I mean, Cody Lindenberg might be the best linebacker we have ever coached by the time he's done here. I'm saying ever. That's 10 years being a head coach going into year 11. He's that talented. And he's an in-state kid. And he was under-recruited, right? And we're talking about maybe one of the best ones. And then you add him to this youth movement of linebackers that are going to be around each other for a while because they're going to join Cody for a lot of years. And then you add Ryan Seelig, which is really going to help us because he's played a ton of football, and he's got 1 year. And very similar to Jack that way. And we wouldn't bring him in if we didn't feel like he could do that. So if that's how you want to compare him to Jack, you can. But Jack's a really good football player who's playing in the NFL right now. And we got a lot of work to do before we start talking about that.
1 or 2 more for Coach.
Are there any about the commitment? I mean, this is the first big Minnesota class that you've had. I mean, that's really so different than a few years ago where you just maybe had 1 or 2. Now you have this many. That seems to be changing a lot. I mean, are you noticing that?
I am noticing that, and that's, you set goals and you set visions for how you want the program to look, right? And we're not perfect. I know all of you write about what we haven't done, which rightfully so, right? We said we're going to do things, but for the most part, the things we said we're going to do, for the most part, we've done. And part of that is bringing more in-state talent in here. Now, they obviously have to be good enough to play at this level, but I value the development piece of that. Who's willing to be developed? What have we brought within state that's developed into what we wanted them to be and what they've wanted to be and what hasn't? And then you apply that formula, and then you win, and then you have those people on the field in 2019 that stormed the field. You have those people who have moms and dads that were Gophers and are really proud to be Gophers, and see how the tide's turning in some of our rivalries. I know Iowa, I get it. Move on, because I'm talking about Wisconsin. And we're 3-3. That's split right down the middle, just like the rivalry is split down the middle. And I think you start to see that and people get more excited. So I'm energized by it. I can see the difference of when we walk into Minnesota schools, the excitement people have about Minnesota. I can see that. I'm not saying they didn't have that before, but there's a lot more now. And that's what you want to create as an in-state coach of an in-state high school recruiting. You want people to dream of being Gophers. And this is the biggest class we've had of people who dream about being Gophers. When you offer them, they commit. It's not like, yeah, I need to think about it, collect all these offers. It comes down to the end and they pick a rival. They are staying here. And I think that's huge. It's hugely important as we go into the 24 class as well, because this train never stops, as you know. But very proud of our staff. Staff did a great job of identifying that and connecting these players. But a lot of them go to the same schools and play against each other, and they did a great job of connecting each other as well.
Ryan, did you have a final question?
Are there any additional positions in the portal you hope to address before mid-year?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, there's some like corner. I think we still we have great plans of what we want to do with corner. That's just going to take us a little bit longer to get to. Maybe O-line, maybe one as we go forward. But again, we're in no rush to be able to do it. We want to get the right fit. Maybe as we keep going forward, maybe someone on the defensive side of the ball interiorly, just depending on what it looks like. But to everybody's point, this is a 33-person class. And again, some scholarship, some walk-ons, right? Some portal. But the game has changed. I mean, without the 25 initial scholarships, and you can only bring in so many guys, I mean, you can bring in 80 players if you have room on the 85. That's what makes it so different, that these classes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger because you have people leaving your program, and you don't even know what the numbers are going to look like. So for us, you won't know what their true team is going to look like until training camp, because you've got another portal window after spring. You got portal visits coming up in January. I mean, it seems like, it never ends, but it doesn't. And, you can constantly be feeding your, I tend to look at everything in a positive way. So to me, you can keep making your roster better. Even with attrition, you can make it better. And you have the ability for that type of, additions, which is critical for roster management, which is turned a little bit more into a combination of true NFL, 1 year, put everything into 1 year, but it still has that college feel of let's develop a lot of our young players and get them to be the players they want to become in the future. But there's a balance to that. As you can see, I think we talked about, what do we have, 5 portal players? 5? Okay. 28 are high school. Am I correct on that? So when we talk about the majority of what we're going to do is high school development, that's what I mean. So we've stuck by what we've said. And then also filling in that gap a little bit here and there with some of those bridges that we need. So excited about the class. Appreciate all your coverage. Can't wait to see all of you here in New York City here coming up very shortly. So appreciate your time. Thanks for covering us. Roll the boat, Sky, and Go Gophers. Thanks.